Hey there, I'm Alan Furstenberg,
And I'm Ilarna
and welcome to Two Voice Devs. Hey, Ilarna, great to have you back on the show.
Thank you for having me.
No, it's always fantastic. Always love the opportunity to catch up with you, see what's going on. What's going on? How have things been since we last chatted?
Yeah, I mean, on a different level, things are starting to open up now more over here. A lot more happier people around. Voice has changed massively, I feel like, in terms of when we last spoke. So many more features, so many more companies getting involved. Your
Yeah,
Clubhouse, social audio. I think it's becoming more and more. I think more and more people are accepting it as well in the mainstream, and I'm really excited to see where voice is gonna continue going.
no, I agree. I'm talking to a lot more companies now who are all kind of saying, we see where the smart speakers are going, we saw where Clubhouse is going, we want to get into it. How do we get started? Where do we get going? And then the next question for some of the companies is, and where can we find employees to help us do this? And where are the people that already know everything there is to know about voice? And I've got to start out by saying that's nobody. I mean, it's nice to think that we know a lot and we're learning more, but I don't think anybody right now really knows everything about what's going on in voice. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's different pyramids of people who belong in the different spaces. You've got the people who have been in this space for years, like longer than we have in terms of like decades and decades on the actual focusing on the actual technology. And then you've got people like us who are like, we think we're experts, but we're really not compared to those people. But at the same time, we fit in the bracket of consumer. We're in the front ends of the consumer, and we know more about how they are like interacting with voice and the use cases that would be great for that. And then you've got the people who are the ones who are still undiscovered. Like I remember our last podcast, I was telling you we need that next multi-million-pound voice app, voice game, and that person is still out there who doesn't know about it yet. But no, most definitely, I think we're coming to a point where companies can't ignore. They can't ignore this. And I'm actually going to. I'm now saying this is my quote. Every company needs a website, right?
Yeah.
Every company will soon need a voice experience. So I literally tell everyone I speak to, like, voice industry is the industry to be in. It's going to be so big. Like right now, maybe it's hard, but it's going to be as big as web because it's just as needed. And it's I believe the opportunities are there. And it's just like you said, Alan, finding, I guess, the right people and coming up with a way to identify those people.
No, I think that you've made some great points. That the notion that everyone is going to need voice, everyone is going to, and I think it's going to start becoming that everyone will have voice incorporated into all of the other things. So you're going to have a website, you're going to have mobile, and all of that is going to need to support voice at the same time. So we're going to have this grand, all of these things coming together more and more. Let me put it this way. I've got companies that are asking me where they can find people. You've got people who you say don't realize that voice is there. What are you telling these people? What are we saying to people who are saying, where do we find the developers for voice?
Yeah, I mean, especially because I have my consultancy as well where I offer those services. It's just about finding what projects are good for you, because not everything will be good for you, but also I feel like with different companies and different people, they're expecting different things, and they're so they may come into it like with an experience where they're kind of interacting with a voice experience but they only have that one linear mindset, and they're not thinking about everyone using it. So in a sense, it's like you have to provide that value and be like, you've got a good use case here, but I'm going to come in and try and help you in a way where we can think about not just your use case, but everyone's use case, so that it's beneficial to everyone. And I think it's definitely really important that we find these people and more people get on board.
No, I agree. And I think one of the interesting, I think I see it as kind of a challenge in some ways right now in the industry, is that developers have to take on the role of designers sometimes, and designers have to take on the role of developers sometimes, because that's, people are approaching us without understanding what the distinction between the two is right now. Right now, I remember the early days of the web, people would come to developers and say, here's what we need to do. We need you to make it work and look good. And nobody knew what that meant at the time. I think the advantage in voice right now is we at least have voice designers out there already who have something of an idea on what can be done and the best way to do it. But even so, as developers, we are still helping clients understand just why they want to have both audio and text come out at the same time to be able to deal with it, because there are design considerations there, or why it needs to sound certain ways, because those may be the limitations in some ways, but also a better user experience.
No, definitely. And one thing I will say, that web, because when I was doing web development, one thing I didn't think about was accessibility. Like, I'll hold my hands up high. I did use a tool that would rate your, like, how accessible the website was, and then do the fixes after that. Like, say, oh, it's doing that, but I would do the bare minimum. But with voice, I found that accessibility and making sure that it's as accessible as possible has made me understand a whole new understanding for a different demographic, and also made me think about UX in another way. Like, I wouldn't consider myself a UX person before, prior to voice, but now it's like you said, this web development is a whole new role. I wouldn't even put us with software development. I would say we are voice developers as another role, because you have to think about the UX, and you can't just go about it the same way as a software developer.
Yeah. However, I think one of the great things about voice development is that it really can build on top of things that that developers for mobile or developers for the web have already done. So if they're a person who is a back-end developer or a web developer or a mobile developer already, and they're looking at this voice thing, I don't think it's that big a leap. I think it's a couple of new things to learn. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely think if you have that full stack experience, that full stack role, you kind of wear many hats. And I think you can build an experience, but then it's that whole voice design, the VUX. That's the crucial point, in making the best experience. And I think that's where, as a developer, when I started, I remember just you know how on Amazon Alexa, like every experience that you would listen to would start off with "Welcome to" and the name of the app, and you fall into that trap when you like follow like templates and stuff like that. So I definitely think it was as a developer, it's looking beyond that, reading maybe books, watching TV, seeing how people operate, and psychology, and actually doing more than what you'd usually do as a developer normally.
So yeah, but I think the basics are still there. One of the great things is, almost all the libraries have Node.js. Well, Node.js is just JavaScript. So if you've been a front-end developer for years, you're used to JavaScript. You know the basics.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's not that it's, oh, I can, pick this up in an hour. but I don't think it's more than I can pick this up in a weekend if I've already got the basics down.
Yeah, I definitely think back in the day, when I mean back in the day, 2017, when they had they had the tutorials and templates, and I had no experience in voice development. I'd say it was much easier than now. If I got into it now, I think I would struggle a bit because I'd be so intimidated with all the features and the documentation. And like APL was something, like take APL for example, something completely new, but it had, like you said, aspects of like CSS, and that's why I kind of like took some of the understanding from that. But it's just maybe learning the syntax and getting used to that idea. But now obviously when you have the web API, you can kind of like go back to that.
Right.
That's
I mean, that's kind of what I'm thinking is, with the interactive canvas or with web API for games, there I could say, if you're a React developer already, or a Vue developer or an Angular developer, or if you just like playing with HTML, you're already 95% of the way there. I could just teach you that little bit extra, and I don't think that's difficult to. I don't think that's a
yeah.
difficult hill. What do you think? You seem to
I
disagree with me.
No, I agree. Like it's especially with Canvas. What I wish Canvas was available on not just games and
Not just
stuff.
go. Oh, tell me about it.
There's so many. Because I love exploring Canvas. As I started using Canvas like last year, um, and it's just like you said, the capabilities of web. Like it wasn't that hard to pick up on because it's literally from my web development experience. I was able to like integrate it into this canvas, and it's just the only thing that was different was learning how to connect it from the back end um in terms of the voice stuff. So
Right.
but like I said, it's I feel that when you have different platforms, um and they're still learning, and they're kind of experimenting with stuff until, like you said, there's some sort of uh movement forward where they're like, okay, right, this is what we're doing, let's go. Then I think it will put people off because constantly learning and being like, you've learned one way, but now you have to step back and learn something new.
Yeah. I get that, and I guess part of why that doesn't bug me so much is I think how many times I've had to relearn how to develop for the web. I mean, I still remember back the web days when we were just getting forms and we didn't have JSON and we didn't have, um, XML, HTTP. I can't even remember the name of the call anymore. We didn't have this notion of a dynamic client. Everything was a call to the server, and the server would send back a brand new page. And then I had to relearn, well, okay, now how do I just send requests off and get responses back in JSON and rewrite my page? And then I could say, well, I could throw that all now because I've got React or Vue or Angular. So I feel like I've had to relearn the web a whole bunch of times. So
Yeah.
relearning it once more to add voice to it doesn't seem so intimidating to me.
No, I mean, I love learning. That's why also getting into the voice industry with it being so new and there's constantly new features and updates. I love learning. I love being on top of it. And I think that what's important is for, I guess, developers is stability. Because when I'm learning those new things, I get into and because it's so new, I'm on my own in a way where it's like there's no forums yet, there's no one else has come across this issue or error.
Yes.
And it's just like, oh, Stack Overflow, you're my friend.
I was going to say, so that's two thoughts that I have thinking about that one. The first is, where would you tell somebody who's just getting into voice where to turn when they have, and that's when they have problems, not if they have problems, because all of us have had issues, and we all have. So when they have those issues, where do you think the best place to turn is?
I think, ironically enough, if you're using Java, for example, the Jovo community is, like I say, one of the most active in terms of getting issues done and asking for help and stuff. Obviously Amazon forums, as like it takes a couple of days, I think, depending on the situation. So it's a good question, because there's not really, like Stack Overflow, I can get most answers from when I'm doing like mobile applications and stuff like that on web. When it comes to voice, you can look at past forums, but then you see how long it took them to reply or other people to get involved, because maybe it's just not as well known or in there yet. But no, I think Slack is the quickest way to get an answer, I'm sure, but it's not that you might not always get an answer. But I know with Jovo, I've had good experiences with that, because so many people are using it, I guess, and it's such an active community. Yeah.
It's interesting. I know that certainly on the actions on Google side, I love Stack Overflow and the community that's being built up around Stack Overflow. There are a lot of good people that are jumping in and contributing answers there. But you're right, I don't tend to use it too much when I run into Alexa questions. For Alexa questions, quite frankly, I tend to ask you or Mark or a couple of other people that I know personally. But I think that is also actually a great location. Is Twitter itself has a thriving community of voice developers. And there are the various voice lunches that we have. So, I know you run Voice Lunch UK and I run Voice Lunch US. And we both show up fairly frequently at the Voice Lunch developer community. And those are all fantastic places to tap into developers specifically when we've got developer questions, but also that broader community. So when we do have design questions or more theoretical questions, or is this something that even makes sense with voice questions, there are people that are out there to talk about them.
No, yeah, and going back to it as well, I feel I tend to when I do get stuck, I use like the Amazon contact us page. I find, they're very good, they're very on it. So it's kind of like my go-to when I do get stuck is if it's to do with Jovo, I go to the Jovo Slack channel. If it's to do with Alexa, I go to I use their support contact form, because they're actually their turnaround, I find, is much quicker than actually the forums. And then if it's anything Google related, like you said, there's more on it, but it's not, I wouldn't say there's more on that out of all of the platforms. I'd say Google has the most, because I'm guessing because of like Dialogflow and chatbots and stuff, they have more, they have more people who have tried it out and ran into issues. So I don't really need to tend to ask questions, because I can find the answer there and just be like, yes, I have that same problem. So I think, stability is one of the most important things when it comes to learning, and having that is, if the support's there, then it's a no deal. Like I feel Amazon especially make a good use case, and Google, and also Samsung Bixby, which what they did was really good, because I think out of all of them, they had the hard challenge of trying to convince people to not only build and on a new platform, but also do it in a different way that's completely different to the other platforms, and try and change your mindset as that's how you make a lexical, but this is how you make a Samsung capsule. And like I said, I'm a visual learner, so for me, it's all about videos, because I need to see physically.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. So and I guess that was the other question I had, is if somebody came to you and said they wanted to get into voice, kind of what resources would you point them at, or what path would you point them at, or what would you tell them to do?
I mean, it depends if they're looking to do it as a job, if they actually want to do it as a hobby or as a job, because from a business point of view, and if you want to run a business, Jovo, VoiceFlow, all those are effective, because you can take advantage of being like to the client, hey, we can get you on Google, Amazon, and Samsung, and the web, chatbot, whatever, like all the platforms, and we only have to do it in one code base. Or if you want to be smug and just be like, we can do it in Amazon, Google, Samsung, all the platforms, and do it in separate code base. It's up to you. But you just having that diverse, that variety and the knowledge of knowing how to do it in cross-platform and non-cross-platform, well, that's a great step to do.
Yeah.
So I'd always say like learn both native and also Jovo's cross-platform one.
Well, I mean, that's the issue we've had with mobile for years now is, you know, do we write this twice, once for iOS, once for Android, or do we, you know, go with, you know, Flutter is now the big hot thing to do multi-platform development.
Yeah. I mean,
and there's no straight answer. I mean, it's always
pros and cons for both.
Yeah. So actually, you know, I guess the follow-up from that is if someone came to you and said, you know, I'm used to doing front end work. Should I pay attention to this voice thing? What would you say? I mean, I know I would tell them to, but I'm hooked in this environment already.
I would definitely say, I would say go for it. Like, what do you have to lose? I mean, if you look at the job market, it's people are still looking for web people. That's always going to be there, and there's not that many voice. Like, if you look at the job market, type in voice developer. But firstly, what is the name for it? We still need to kind of, I guess, find out what the role and the names are for this. But just to get in there first, and then you could actually be one of the few specialists in the entire world. So like I said, it's just, Alan, it's going to explode. Like, there's going to be there's so many businesses out there. Like, it's like, how many web developers are out there right now, and how many jobs are still available for web developers? So many. Same with voice, to the point where there's so much, and if you can get in there early, and I'm still saying it's early.
It's I agree with you there. It's very early still. I mean, and I think the catch though is that's one of the problems when it comes to change is it's still early enough that lots of things are going to change between now and 5 years from now. So
would that be bad for us, or was that good for us? Because if are we going to be used to something that we've learned, and then it's hard to kind of slowly move away from, or even adapt? So we're making stuff in the past that we then have to change and adapt to. Is that a con?
No, that's a good question. And I think it depends. There are certainly going to be some things that I think it will be good to move away from, that will be painful to move away from.
Yeah.
The notion, for example, that actions and skills run in the cloud, I think over the next few years is going to become less and less. And they're going to be running more and more on closer to where you are. Because let's face it, you know, if I'm asking my device to do something and it takes 4 seconds for it to get back to me on that, that's a long time. That feels like a long time. Whereas if it takes a second because it's now running locally instead, that's a lot better. But what are the trade-offs to that? Does that mean that our devices need to get 5 times more expensive because they're need to process it faster, or need more memory, or so I don't know. I keep looking at that, and I think that's not going to be a fast transition, but it's going to be a transition, and I don't know how painful a transition it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that, especially with Spotify releasing their own kind of voice assistant, do you think that more and more hardware will have their own integrated voice assistant, so that it kind of disables that whole problem that you just mentioned?
Well, yes and no. So here's the thing. I mean, in one sense, I get where Spotify is going with that. But does that mean that now on a Spotify device, I can't listen to my playlist from Apple Music? Probably. Do I, as a consumer, want that? Probably not. You know, I want to be, you know, one of the big wins about both the web browser and the mobile device is that they were in some ways universal. I wasn't locked into one particular provider. I am sort of, but I'm not really locked into it. You know, if I want to listen to Apple Music, I can listen to Apple Music. If I want to listen to Spotify music, I can listen to Spotify. You know, I can change based on my personal preferences. If I own a Spotify music device, I can't listen to anyone else's music. And I also then can't use it as a GPS device. Because so now do I have the Spotify device in my car and the separate GPS device in my car and the separate something else device in my car, and of course the car controls themselves, which are separate. And then what if I now want the entertainment system, you know, the system that talks to my kids in the back seat? Is that another system? How do they all play together? This is why I like I like the fact that Amazon upfront released skills. I was really happy that when they did that. And I was happy that Google released actions. And I love what Samsung has done with capsules, that everybody's in an equal playing field. We don't have that on all these other devices yet. If I buy a Mercedes that has Mercedes voice system built into it, I can't run something that somebody else developed. And
yes,
as a consumer, I probably wouldn't notice or care about that until I did.
yeah,
Until I wanted to say something like, hey, Mercedes, let's go get a Starbucks on the way home. And Mercedes would tell me where the Starbucks was, but couldn't do the ordering for me. So,
no, yeah,
so
yeah,
as a consumer, I might not notice that for a while until I do. As a developer, that really, really makes me anxious, because I really want to be able to develop and have my brilliant idea that Spotify and Mercedes didn't think about available to their customers.
no, yeah. But then does that provide another use case? Like with the Fire TV, for example, you have all these separate services where you have like Disney Plus and Netflix and Prime Video and I think Hulu, which we don't have over here, but those streaming services. But then you have the Fire TV, which brings them all together, and you can search for one movie and then it will tell you where you can watch it. Do you think that maybe Amazon or Google or Samsung, those big players, turn into that? So soon, if all these hardware companies, because I feel it's inevitable that they will go down that route, but then they could change their business plan and be like, you know what, we can be the Fire TV and bring you all together so that it's easier for the user and consumer. So more like voice search as the helm, and maybe as a developer, that's a new route you could take. Looking to focus on more on like voice search and searching for the right experience. So that experience alone, which isn't an experience, if I'm trying to understand, so basically the experience of search and the voice. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I know exactly where you're going with it. And this is actually one of the things that I used to love to talk about as the big differentiator between what Google Assistant did and what Alexa did, is that I was seeing Alexa as taking the app, the mobile app model, because you needed to enable a skill first.
Yeah.
And they've relaxed that a little bit in some ways, and that's been good. Whereas Google's approach was, it's all out there, just like the whole web is out there, and we're going to help you find it. And that had its own problems, but it was interesting, the two different notions and how they've kind of both merged towards each other. And in both of their cases, they merged away from helping developers out. So yeah, I'd really like to see it if, you know, these companies adopted the same sort of thing that Fire TV has done, or that Google TV has done.
Yeah, the Chromecast.
That's that they become this search and preferences conduit with a standard way to help you find all of these other things. Just like once upon a time, Google was the way to help you find all of these things out on the web.
Yeah. Because it literally is. You type into Google, you're typing a word, and they're bringing you the results, and they're filtering the results for you. And you just happen to, you're more likely to press the top link. But
right.
That's the same. That's how voice should technically be. Like if I'm looking for a particular game or experience.
Well, right, but there's the thing is right now, what does it mean to look for an experience? You know, we can understand that in some ways, like when I ask for the weather, you know, right now, Alexa and Google, they have that built in. They give you the weather.
Yeah.
Samsung says, well, who can answer this question? Let me go figure that out. And they find the capsule that can answer that question. So I think Samsung.
That's what I mean. That's how it should be.
Yeah.
Because it's literally that I don't care about what just give me my answer, give me the solution. That's why I'm asking you, or I can just go on my phone. But I think that whole use case there is a completely new route that they should really be focusing on, and I think that's a new way of thinking.
So, but also when you start saying things like, okay, that works well for the weather. What if I said, I'm at the airport and I need a ride to my hotel? Right now, we think of that in terms of, I will bring up the Uber or the Lyft or the London Taxi app. How do we change that notion so that we farm that out to a service? I don't know. How do we do that in a fair way?
That's what Samsung did, which is really clever, is that they just know that you as the user set what you prefer, your preference. Because I don't know, for me, I always, I mean, there's not really, we don't have many driving services, there's America, but like I'll always use Uber if I want to go somewhere and instead of taking a taxi, because of how seamless it is, instead of having to pay in cash or having a card, I can just pay on my phone, for example. So in that sense, using AI and using just looking at my data, they can see, oh, this person is always using Uber. I'm just going to assume that just going to use Uber. So I think that that's kind of where it should go, because if it's linked to your phone, which it should be, it's like if I'm going to say call my mum, for example, it should know which number to call because it has that history. I'm always calling her mobile. I'm not calling the house phone. I'm calling the mobile. And so that's why I say, like, in order for us to build these experiences to that point, it should be developers focusing on personalization and also looking at, forget about the actual apps and stuff, but look at that structure. And I don't know what that is called yet, or where they can start building that, but that should be the focus, I think.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So I guess that actually, that would have been the next question, is where, you know, if someone came to you, again, it's come to one of us and says, yeah, that makes sense, but how do I do that? Where do I get started with that?
Yeah, I mean, maybe the big guys, go to one of the big guys, Google, Amazon, like surely like they're thinking about that. I mean, Samsung have kind of already done it, so it's like learn from the big guys and then adopt your own approach.
I mean, we even see Google and Amazon doing that to some extent. You know, Google has what they refer to as built-in intents. So you could say things like play a game and it goes to its list of games that are popular. And if there's a game that you play frequently, it will suggest that one to you again. On a mobile device, if you say, I need a ride, it brings up whatever app has been registered that can do that.
So it's really the setup then. It's like either you focus on the setup, and do you go for a long setup with like forums and questionnaires, or do you do it during use, where like subtly and small changes now and again? Yeah, it's just, this is what I mean. It's so exciting because we have that landscape to just explore and experiment and to change when we want, and it's not settled yet. So there's so many more and more opportunities for people to get in there. It's like a startup mindset, isn't it? Like, it just brings back that excitement of being a part of something cool in the future.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is voice, is this notion of we're, 10 steps ahead in the future and trying to figure out how to get there, or how we got there, or how to get
Yeah,
everyone else there.
because I mean, I've made games for the longest of time now. Well, I mean, longest of time, 2017. Whenever I started back in the day, I mean 2017 when I started properly. And now I'm just on the point where I'm like, it's time to create some impactful things that are actually going to change people's mindset and get them and help them,
Yeah.
time to make those sorts of things.
So, without revealing any projects that you may be working on, what's the one thing that you'd love to see somebody else work on that's impactful? Because you don't have
Yeah,
time to work on it. What would you like to see somebody else do?
I've said this so many times because I know I don't have the time to do it, but I'd love it will help me a lot and I'll use it and I'll be happy to test it if someone makes it. But just simple action in the car when you're driving. I would love for there to be I've tried this, no, it's not there yet, so you're welcome. Literally just asking for the speed on the road, because sometimes on Google, it on Google Maps sometimes, and I love that it alerts you if you go high, but sometimes it's not always on there, and sometimes the road signs don't have it on. I'd love to know. Sometimes like, I actually try and I'm like, what is the speed limit? Something as simple as that, but will be so impactful and so helpful. It's
That's a great example. I love that one. It's actually similar in some ways to one that I wrote once upon a time, but I'd love to see it done better. And that's, while I'm driving, I just wanted to, I've told it where I'm going. How long is it going to take me how much longer do I have to sit here? And yeah, probably I could look at, if I've got my phone doing it, it would tell me too, but that requires me to wake up the phone and get it to tell me. I just want to say out loud, hey, gee, how much longer till I'm there?
yeah,
And quickly get an answer.
yeah. I mean, there's so many cool things, subtle things that I've noticed already, like in the car, that I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Like when I call, for example, when I'm calling someone and I'm driving, because it knows that I've got maps, I'm driving with maps on, I've set the navigation, I'm saying call so and so. It puts it automatically onto speaker. And I think stuff like that is so clever. And the sort of things that people like start small and think small, stuff that, that's so helpful, because why are you calling someone, you're driving, and then you have to go and press speaker?
Mm-hmm.
It's already automatically on speaker. So stuff like that is incredible.
I know, other stuff I'd love to see, just people writing these little utilities that we can invoke and use on a daily basis. I mean, we think of things like shopping lists, but are there other to-do lists that we like to maintain during the day, or other ways to remind us, short of having to tell a speaker to remind me at 5 o'clock to do this? What other kinds of reminders make sense?
I think you're nailed on the head with shopping lists, because there's a reason I still don't use shopping lists with voice, because if you think of the behavior of when you're trying to think of stuff on a shopping list, it's not something where you're just going to be like standing there and saying what it is. It's going to be throughout the whole day. So if
Right.
I say something like, oh, I forgot eggs, that should then go on the shopping list automatically. I don't need to say add eggs to the shopping list. This is where I want voice to go, and this is where it should be going. And this is why I'm saying, like, developers out there who are scared to go into voice, or who are just not knowing about voice, this is why we need to advertise it more and advocate more, because the people out there will come and build it, they'll come and make it and push it even further. So
one
yeah,
of
we need to get this out there.
one of the things that always amazes me is when I do tutorials, or I talk a lot, or doing presentations about voice. I've had people come up to me afterwards and say, why are you giving away all of these ideas? Why are, and I'm like, I can't do them all. And I
Yeah,
can't. And even if I could do all the ones that I think about, other people are going to think about their own great ideas. And I want everybody out there coming up with their ideas and being able to implement them themselves. Because when we create all of these ideas, when we put them all together, we're going to create an environment that's just awesome. So if all I'm doing is teaching other people how to create these things,
it benefits everyone.
I win.
Exactly. And I think you nailed it on the head there, because all the kind of communities I've been with, and I say this all the time, the voice community is honestly the best community. Everyone is so helpful. Everyone is so, like you said, open to help each other. And I think it's because, like you said, we're all new to this. We're all new here, and we know that it's beneficial, and we all win in the end. So for me, it's like, it's a no-brainer. Someone needs help. Like people can come up to me anytime and they can ask like advice, and I'll happily give some. I'll happily just talk about like my experiences, or give them advice on what they should do, because it's like, we need more and more people in this community to grow, or how are we going to grow? We'll just stay stagnant, and then it will fizzle off.
Yep. And in fact, one of the things I actually say when I get, private messages of people asking me questions, I'm like, look, I'm like, I can answer this question, but I'd rather you ask it publicly. This way you get the answer and somebody else may get that answer too. I want to help as many people as I can.
No, yeah, definitely. And I think in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, I definitely see, like, with obviously social audio with Clubhouse came from nowhere, blew up. And what is the next big thing in voice? Like, Clubhouse obviously has just paved the way for other companies like Facebook and all that to kind of.
It's interesting. Everybody's copying Clubhouse, and I don't think Clubhouse had quite the right model, but we'll see where it goes.
We'll see where it goes. Look at Discord. Discord had that. I didn't realize. I only just got into Discord this year because it was something where I didn't even. It's like Slack, isn't it? Where it's like and I use it now as like a way to like talk about the crypto world, because I just got fed up with typing individually to people being like, you need to get on this crypto investment thing. But it has that voice feature,
yes,
where you can talk to people. And I wonder if that was a hit or miss for Discord, because why isn't that something that's not as popular, or why isn't Discord as mainstream as it should be?
I asked about that once when in the early days when Clubhouse was public. I said that, and they said, well, it's because the Discord audio channels are actually private. You need to be on a Discord server to use it. I'm like, how has that really stopped anybody? And for people who were using Discord, they've always been using the audio channels. They've been using that for years in really, really creative ways. There are bots that you can write that will pump audio out to a Discord channel. You can listen to Discord jukeboxes. There are all sorts of cool things that you can do with Discord audio.
Yeah, why hasn't Slack? I wonder why Slack didn't even integrate that, because something, especially with remote work.
So here's the reason. I think it's because Discord came out of the gaming community, and everyone discounts the gamers off the bat, instead of realizing that just about every technology we've used has come out of the gaming world first.
Yeah.
So Discord was very much a gaming server and is now being adopted for work use, as opposed to Slack, which was targeting work and then tried to expand its horizons. And even there, I think there's plenty of other places that social audio can explore and see, how does it cross over with podcasting? How does it cross over with regular broadcast media? We haven't had any of the social audio ones make a dent into smart speakers yet. They haven't even tried. What happens when they do? I think that's going to be exciting. And there's a developer out there that I hope is working on how to do that, because I've thought a lot about it and I want to see someone do it well.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And this is what I mean, going back to the main topic, is that this is why you should get into voice, because there's so much out there to do. And you can do it, literally.
Yes.
So,
That's the great thing about being a programmer is
yeah,
you can do it.
exactly. And there's so many now, there's so many resources, so many different platforms, new platforms emerging. Different countries are taking, also getting involved more with it. They're seeing the importance of it. If anything, it's just the growth, and it's good to get in there, because as soon as it booms and explodes and everyone's coming in, you'll already have a foot in the door, and you'll be well on your way to having a great voice journey.
Yeah. So if people wanted to get a hold of you, what's to ask you questions or to find out the best way for them to get started on their journey, what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very bad at social media, but you can catch me on Twitter. My handle, I think, is Ilarna_preach. LinkedIn as well. LinkedIn's great. And you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And then, yeah, I think literally those two, I guess. Those two, Slack, I don't know, Voice Lunch as well.
Voice Lunch is always a great resource to find us and a bunch of other
Yeah, to
great
find
people.
everyone. I feel like it's so weird because you go on Voice Lunch and you're starting to see, what I love about it is you start to see people that you saw on Twitter, but you actually get to see them move in like real life. And you just see the static image on Twitter, their tweet, and now when you go on Voice Lunch and you can hear their voice, you can now, when they're tweeting something out, you can hear their voice as you're reading it inside. So although I love Voice Lunch, and like I said, you get to communicate with a lot of people, and it's kind of it's small, so that it's small so that you know people and recognize their faces, but I feel like it's growing and growing. So
well, I think it's also a very welcoming community. Yeah,
yeah,
we are growing, but every week there's one or two new people, and every couple of months, some of the people that have now been hanging out for a few months have wanted to step up and talk. So it's definitely a community that is growing and is very nurturing. I think we're really encouraging each other to learn these new things and to grow.
yeah. Would you say that we need more international, obviously because of last year hard, but more international conferences, do you think, maybe? Because I know that there's a lot of American ones, like a lot in the US, and obviously people over here, we're just like, we see you guys have a lot of fun and you get to meet each other, and we have ours, but we need a big one as well.
I was gonna say there are a couple of good ones in Europe that I always wished I was able to attend. But I think one of the important elements that we're still really early in voice is that international flavor. We really have only begun to make a small dent in making sure that the voice systems that we're building are truly international voice agents. That's really a place where we need to do a lot more work.
Yeah.
And I think literally we need a lot more voices in that space to help push the big companies in that direction.
No, yeah, I'm very excited, and I'm looking forward. Like the next time we meet, who knows what the changes could happen. But yeah, I'm very excited for voice, and let's hope. I'm still on the lookout. Every time I come on this podcast, we're like, where is the next multi-million-pound voice app? We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So, for anyone who's out there who thinks they have the next multi-million voice app, maybe you don't want to share it with us. We can understand that. But if you've got questions or problems about how to get it done, feel free to reach out to us if you have questions. If you've got thoughts about where you would like to see your answers coming from, if there are answers that we can help you with on the show, please feel free to comment, reach out to us on Twitter, on LinkedIn. And we look forward to answering your questions and maybe having you on the show another time, another episode of Two Voice Devs. Take care, Alana.
Thank you.